I very much like the introduction from Christine on the feminization of labor because, of course, domestic workers, I mean, the ILO just launched another report on statistics, and which is, of course, very hard for informal workers to achieve. But what we can clearly say is that about 90% of all domestic workers, in particular those that are migrating, are women. Race is very important, as you said, because it's rooted in the history of slavery. But I would also add one additional point, and if my Latin American domestic worker representatives would hear, they would already be very nervous, because I think you need to add class. In the feminist kind of discourse, you have a lot of this discourse, women employing women and exploiting them. We have a little bit of a different view, but of course this is one element. I mean, the women that, even though my European counterparts often say, well, you have to look at this differently, it's the household that is employing the domestic worker. But for the domestic worker, her counterpart is the woman of the house. And she is the one very often exploiting her, not granting rights, treating her not with respect, not providing her days off, not registering her with social protection, and so forth. So I think this is an element we need to have in mind. And this is also, if we talk about migration and what Rahul just said, it's the most exploited group and vulnerable group, then we are not thinking about doctors migrating. We are thinking of exactly these groups, and it is the kind of counter medal of outsourcing is migrants. All the things you cannot outsource, services, construction, all these things. What can you do? I mean, in order to get cheap labor, you import from poorer countries, and so it is just kind of the other side of the coin of a new kind of regime, what you were talking about yesterday, on greater inequality and a kind of new divide of international labor. We don't talk about all the different aspects. We don't talk about live-ins and live-outs, not about part-time and full-time domestic workers. This is an occupational group, and it has a lot of specificities, among them that they are migrants. Very often, not exclusively. So, but when it comes to mentioning in an international instrument certain topics, the danger you have, in particular, if you deal with migrants, is whenever you mention them, then it means, when they are not mentioned elsewhere, this means they're excluded. So this is why, for us, it was very important, not just for tactical reasons, but also for reasons to really get the broadest coverage of, I mean, all kind of domestic workers, is to have the scope quite broad and to have them included. So whenever migrants are not mentioned, it does not mean that they are not covered. To the contrary, they are covered. And of course, you have very special problems, and Mathis Bube already told his experiences from the region he used to work in. This is the most horrible region for domestic workers. Just a couple of days ago, a migrant domestic worker from somewhere from South Asia, I forgot, was executed because she was accused that she was responsible for the death of the baby of her employer. She was at that time 17 years old, and there was no outcry in the international community. It was just happening just like this. So this is the most horrible region. This does not mean that in Europe, where we are also civilized, everything is perfect. I mean, I could imagine that among us, we have a lot of employers. I mean, including myself, by the way. I'm employing a domestic worker once a week coming to my house. But then, I mean, a lot of people also in my kind of crowd, they think, well, you know, if I treat her well and if I pay her on time, then I'm really a great guy, you know, or a great woman. But very often they think, why should I pay my domestic worker when I'm on a holiday? Or why should I pay her when she has a holiday because she's not working? well, I mean, if I confront you with this kind of attitude with your own employment relationship, I think you would think this differently. So these are a lot of kind of aspects. And just to finish, I would like, from what I heard yesterday, and I very much appreciate going into the detail of, do we have to have a global perspective? Do we have to have a regional perspective? And of course, let's focus on migration and migrant workers. I was wondering if we still operate with the right categories. If, nationals and even people with a proper employment relationship don't have the same sort of protection they used to have. So in my work, I come more and more across, if we look at working relationships, if we should not rather look at the level of protection.